Welcome back to the Mark Moses Show, only right here on Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. And right now here on the Club 52 hotline to talk Florida Gators sports. Great friend of the show. His name is Cody Jones, and he works for FightinGators.com. Cody, how you doing today, man?
Doing well, Mark. How's it going?
Well, I know on, Wednesday, yesterday, they had Media Day for Florida basketball. Is this real? I mean, I'm still thinking of the Final Four against UConn. Are we here for a new season?
Yeah, no kidding. It definitely feels like a fast off season, and certainly an interesting one too for Florida. You know, a lot of question marks about this team, and anytime you're replacing four starters like they are, and the guy coming back is Michael Frazier, who has been fairly one-dimensional in his career at Florida so far, but he's been really good at that one dimension and shooting the threes. Mm-hmm. So they've got a lot of question marks, a lot of different guys to replace, a lot of guys that need to step up, but obviously the coaches across the country feel pretty positive about this team. Florida's ranked number 7 in the coaches poll that came out just about an hour ago. So they're obviously excited about this group and think it's going to be a good one, but I think there's obviously still a lot of question marks when you've got 4 seniors from last year's team that bought in so much on the defensive end. Can this team get up to that same defensive level that last year was?
Don't you have to give credit to Billy Donovan and his coaching staff? Like you said, you lose 4 seniors and you're still ranked in the top 10 with pretty much kind of a new core of guys. I mean, you got to give credit to the coaching staff, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what this feels like, just a respect vote basically from Billy Donovan. And that's not to say this team isn't worthy of that. I don't really think we know either way at this point, just because there are so many questions. But, you know, Donovan kind of joked about this yesterday. He kind of gets this reputation of being doom and gloom in his media day press conference, and we kind of joke about it every once in a while. But he is. You think back to last year, all these question marks around this team. You know, the Wilbekin suspension, other guys are suspended. They had injuries. They had so many question marks around this team. Really didn't know what they were going to do, and they ended the season 36-3. So I mean, it's pretty remarkable the way he was able to piece this thing together. I think he's got a little bit more difficult task on his hand this year, just because he doesn't have as many seniors as he did last year. Those 4 guys that were counted on for so much production are gone, and so now they got to figure out a way to gain some more production from some younger guys, some guys who were inconsistent last year, and figure out how to make that work.
What about Chris Walker? What is the latest? Did he get suspended, or am I crazy here? What happened?
No, the suspension for violation of team rules. So he'll miss the first 3 games of the year. What that means is basically the exhibition game and then the first 2, and then the second of those 2 being the Miami game up in Gainesville. So he'll come back, I believe, to Louisiana Monroe, and then Florida will head from there to the Bahamas for the Battle for Atlantis tournament down there. So he'll miss the first 3. Kind of an interesting way to start a big season for him. Clearly, he could have gone to the NBA, would have been a first-round pick last year. Wanted to come back, still looks pretty skinny from seeing him yesterday. I mean, he's added 20 pounds since coming to campus, but he's one of those guys that could add a ton of weight and probably wouldn't show it exactly. So that's what they're trying to figure out, is who's going to be that physical presence at the basket for this team, because it's been Patrick Young for the last 4 years. Now you got Walker, John Horford. You've got guys like this that are the bigger bodies, that the taller bodies that maybe don't have the girth that Young did that could push guys around down there. So they're hoping Walker can develop some sort of that in his game. But there's no question this is a big year for him.
Cody, can we both agree not many individuals can replace the arms of Patrick Young? Can we agree on that?
Yeah, no kidding. And you know, I totally agree with you. There's an interesting thing going on here, though. There's a kid named John Igbunu who's here. He transferred from USF, and we got our first look at him yesterday. I'm not saying he looks like Young, but he is pretty darn close to it. He's 6'11", 266, and is absolutely built like a bodybuilder. I mean, this guy is really huge. They're petitioning for immediate eligibility this year for him. I don't know. Donovan said he doesn't think it's going to happen, but they're going to exhaust all their options trying to get him out there. He's a shot blocker. Was at USF last year. Would be a big boost for this team. I don't know if he is Patrick Young, but physically he looks at least close to it, and I didn't really think that was possible about a year ago.
Huh. We're here with Cody Jones, Fightin Gators. Follow him on Twitter at CJonesScout if you like Gators sports. Let's switch gears to the football team. Okay, let's do it, and then we'll get to the next game. What was that like against LSU? Back and forth in the fourth quarter. I mean, how crazy was that in person?
Yeah, it was weird. It really was. It was kind of a different game, certainly a one that I haven't covered anything like that in a while, just a back-and-forth element of it. And really what it kind of felt like was Florida finding a way to lose that game rather than win it. So it was kind of interesting to see it the way that obviously Andre DeBose with the big kickoff return, special teams plays a big part in that. But the narrative of this game is drastically changed by one play in my mind. That's a drop by Tevin Westbrook. If he catches that, Florida wins this game most likely. Jeff Driscoll, everybody's talking about, well, wow, he actually played a whole lot better than he did against Tennessee and against Alabama. Maybe he's turning the corner. Now the pass is dropped. Florida ends up losing the game, and all of a sudden it's back to, well, yeah, this whole Driscoll guy, we don't really know about him. So the perception, I think, is drastically changed by that one play. And I think that's what's kind of interesting going into this weekend. They're going to play Treon Harris this week with Driscoll. Both guys will play. Driscoll will start. But the question is, how are they going to manage these reps? I mean, are they going to give Driscoll a majority of them? That would kind of be my guess at this point. I still think all the people that want to see Harris, I don't know if you're going to see as much of him as you'd like. It still feels like this is Driscoll's offense on Saturday. But they're going to give Harris at least a shot. And then the coaches, both Roper and Muschamp, have said they're going to go with the guy that gets a hot hand. So they're going to give these guys shots to see who can go out and win the job, and then go with the one that they feel best with later in the second half.
We're here with Cody Jones, Fightin Gators, talking Gator football. You go into the Missouri game. What about the running game? I was a little shocked by the LSU, where it's like, look, Kelvin Taylor didn't really play. Matt Jones kind of banged up. What are your thoughts on the run game? I mean, that's kind of the bread and butter for this team the past couple of years. What about the run game, man?
Yeah, it is the best part of this team in recent years, and it's something that LSU's really struggled with. But I think what the Florida offensive staff saw is that LSU struggled against the quarterback run game. You think of Nick Marshall at Auburn and obviously Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. Those guys really torched LSU on the ground. I don't know if Driscoll is the elite level of runner that those guys are, but they wanted to at least experiment with that and see if they could hit the big plays with him on the ground, and that's why he got so many touches like that. I don't know if it was designed for him to get 21 carries, but they definitely wanted to get him more involved in the running game there. But then you have the Matt Jones injury. He clearly was on himself when he played in the first half, came back out in street clothes in the second half, didn't play then. And the big issue for Kelvin Taylor, and it's kind of an interesting one when you think about it here, because it's been a pass protection issue for him. It's what kept him off the field early in the season last year. You think of the first drive that Florida had. On the third down play, he actually bumped into Driscoll, trying to get out to the other side of him to pick up a blitzer, forcing Driscoll to throw incomplete. So I think they kind of made the coach pretty angry on that play there, and I think that's a big reason of why his touches decreased in the second half, because they don't feel like they can trust him in the passing game. Now, at some point, I think you've got to get over that kind of stuff and give this kid an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's clear that what a talented runner he is. And you got a Florida offense down at the 2-yard line like they were on that second-to-last drive, punching it in from there with a guy like Brandon Powell, who's going to be a really good player here, but his specialty is not around the goal line. You'd think they'd want to go to a guy like Taylor in there, but they were still a little hung up with the pass protection issues that he had struggled with earlier. So it's really kind of a weird dynamic to this thing. I think this week they feel like Matt Jones will be fine, and I imagine everything will be back to normal. But there's no question the way things were managed on Saturday against LSU were certainly interesting, to say the least.
You look at the defensive side of the ball. The big play they gave up 3rd and 25 late. I just think, there's been multiple games now on the early season where the secondaries had problems with matchups or where to be. Can this be corrected? And I'm asking this question as, every fan in Florida wants to know this. Can this be corrected, you think, moving forward here on the schedule?
Well, early in the season, it seemed like an absolute yes, and they'd fix it and then be fine, just because the secondary really hasn't struggled all that much under Will Muschamp. That has been, for all the weaknesses on this team, that seems like it has been the one consistent strength. Now I don't really know, because they're getting in these awkward situations. It's really they're one injury away from being kind of at a difficult spot because they're so thin at cornerback. What happened on Saturday was Vernon Hargraves gets hurt. He's out for the second half of the game, and what they had to do was push Brian Poole from the nickel to the outside cornerback spot, and then they kind of rotated the nickel spot. But they really have struggled guarding slot receivers this year. And then that puts Brian Poole outside, where he's as an outside corner, he's not anywhere close to as good as he is as a nickel. So it really kind of throws everybody out of rhythm a little bit when Tabor or Hargraves is off the field, and that's what you saw on that big play that they gave up. So it's kind of interesting to see this thing, because they played the pass, I thought, against LSU pretty well. Now, part of that is the fact that LSU was just running the ball quite a bit, and Anthony Jennings is really not a good throwing quarterback. So I think that changed things a little bit too. But when Hargraves comes out and they have to move Poole to the outside, it really seems to mess with the secondary. That's what they were doing when they gave up a lot of those breakdowns against Kentucky and Alabama as well. So you'd think during this week they try to find some more depth, whether it's a guy like Quincy Wilson, who I think has played pretty well as a freshman. Just find another corner in there to where they can keep Brian Poole at that nickel spot. I think that's going to make their lives a lot easier, because there's no question that's what has kind of caused all these breakdowns, is when they move Poole outside, they seem to have more of these miscommunications and then give up these big plays.
We're here with Cody Jones, Fightin Gators. Follow him on Twitter at CJonesScout. Does a great job covering, football, basketball, baseball, all that great stuff with the Gators. You look at the Missouri team, and I've been saying this all week. I have no idea who's going to show up. Is it the team that beat South Carolina? Is it the one that gets shut out at home against Georgia? I mean, I literally cannot get a grasp on this team. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, this is, if you're a betting man, this is usually a game you'd probably stay away from, just because I think you kind of feel that way about both these teams. It is really bizarre the way that Missouri's played. Now, the interesting part of this thing is Missouri plays pretty well on the road. They've won 7 straight road games, haven't lost it since the end of 2012 at Texas A&M. So this is a Missouri team that isn't fazed by that. You saw that at South Carolina. They played really composed and played pretty well there. The issue, I think, for them is that line of scrimmage, and they could not block Georgia. That's what I think caused Mock's biggest issues against Georgia, is that he had Georgia pass rushers in the backfield with him. It seemed like the entire game that offensive line really struggled. So can Dante Fowler, Alex McAllister, can those guys provide that same level of pass rush? I think that's yet to be seen, but I think that's what gives Florida the best shot in this game. So Mock is the guy that there's no question. Look, I mean, the Florida staff knows. They should have filmed players the other day of a play where he threw the ball running to his left, threw the ball back 70 yards down the field and hit a receiver right in the hands who dropped it in the Georgia game. I mean, they know this guy has crazy arm strength. They can't give up on plays. He's got the legs to beat them there. They remember what this guy did to him in Columbia last year. So I think that's what makes this thing interesting, is that Mock is not going to sneak up on them. It's just a matter of can they get to the quarterback like Georgia did last week, and that can clearly rattle that Missouri offense.
Let me end with this, and you do a great job covering the Gator football team. What's your take on Georgia then, man? No Todd Gurley, no problem. I mean, they look like the best team. What about you? Do you feel like they are the team to beat now in the Eastern Division?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. Obviously, a big game for them Saturday at Arkansas. It's kind of funny you probably say the best team in the East versus the worst team in the West, but that Arkansas team is not a joke. I mean, they're really, really good, really physical, especially on the ground. So I think that's going to give Georgia some issues there. But, yeah, without Gurley, I mean, it's that stable of running backs, and there really was 4 guys that could probably start anywhere in the country to start the season. Michelle's out. I believe Marshall's out this weekend, too, and then the Gurley suspension, obviously. Basically down to Nick Chubb and Brendan Rodgers, I believe, but that's still a really, really deep core. I mean, and those are 2 guys that could probably start it anywhere across the country. So they've got all sorts of talent back there, and that's really, I think, what has made this transition a little easier. But if they get Gurley back in these next 2 weeks, I think you're going to see a really energized and almost brand new team in Jacksonville once Florida and Georgia meet up there in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I hope so. It's going to be a great game, but we got to get through Missouri first. Cody Jones, Fightin Gators. Cody, appreciate the time, and let me get you on again, all right?
Thanks, Mark. Sounds good.